I've got a really fun little project for you today, and I'm going to be showing you how to make this 1/12 scale tape dispenser. Now I'll be giving you the measurements of the wood as we go along, so let's get started. So for this project I'm going to be using basswood. Now I normally favour a beechy, but basswood has a closer grain and is more suitable for making smaller objects like this because it's less likely to split. Now I've got available in my Etsy shop these 200 by 100mm basswood sheets. They're 1.5mm thick, and that's 8 inches by 4 inches and 1/16 of an inch. And these little sheets are laser cut, so along the edges you'll find like a brown line which is caused by the laser, but that can be easily sanded away. So just to let you know, they're available in my Etsy shop, and you'll find a link to the shop below. Okay, so we want to begin by cutting 2 pieces of basswood, measuring 13.5mm by 7.5mm, and in inches that is 17/32 of an inch by 19/64 of an inch. So cut 2 pieces to that size, and you want to cut it so that the grain is in the direction of the shortest edge, and that will be our top to bottom of our tape dispenser. So we're going to begin by cutting a little shape out of each of these pieces. So with a nice sharp pencil, make your first pencil mark 5mm or 13/64 of an inch from the left hand edge of the piece. A little pencil mark like that, and along the top edge of the wood. And then we're going to make a little pencil mark 2.5mm, and that's 3/32 of an inch from this other edge. So you've got a mark there, 5mm, 2.5mm, 13/64 of an inch, 3/32 of an inch, and then along this little 2.5mm line, turn the piece, and you want to do a little pencil mark at 3.5mm, or bring that line up to 3.5mm high, and again in inches that's 9/64 of an inch. And now the cut we're going to make is going to run from the top of that line out to that little 5mm pencil mark, and then down like that. So we're cutting a triangle out of each of these pieces. Now whenever you're cutting a section out of a piece of wood, you want to begin by cutting against the direction of the grain, so that will be our angled line. So just begin by scoring that line into the wood, just with the tip of your craft knife, and I've got a new blade in this knife, so just go along a few times, and then you can start cutting away with the tip. Now more importantly, when you're working on a tiny piece like this, you need to have cut all the way through the angle, or the piece that's against the direction of the grain, before then cutting along the grain. Otherwise you'll find it will split, and it might well happen now as I'm recording. In my practice run it happened every time. So I think I'm all the way through, so then you want to go down the straight line like that. I'm sort of trying to support the wood as I'm doing it as well. And it's that bit down there that will split if it's going to. But as long as you've cut all the way into that little corner, we should be okay. Like that, and then snip that out, and don't pull it away until you're sure it is snipped out, as again you might split the wood. Like that. So you then want to do the same thing again with your other piece of wood. We're then just going to very gently shape them by coming in at a very slight angle at the front and the back of the piece. So just very gently angle the knife and cut like that. Really careful again not to split the wood. And the same with that one. We're probably just taking off 1/2 millimetre there, and then we're going to do the same at the back. So you want to come in like that at the back edge. Let me hold on to it at that side, and again just a slither of wood we're taking off there, like that. And this is just to make it look less blocky. You can then use an eraser or a piece of gentle sandpaper just to remove the pencil marks. Cut a strip from a piece of 2.5mm sheet wood, and this time you can use any wood that you might have, any little scraps, and I'm using a beechy for this. And cut the strip 2.5mm wide as well. So you've then ended up with a strip that's 2.5mm square, or 3/32 of an inch. And then from that, cut a strip that's 7.5mm high, and again that's 19/64 of an inch. And we're then going to glue that piece into place along the front edge of our dispenser. And you might find that tweezers help for this. So apply a bit of glue to the strip. And then you want to glue it, just remove the dust there, so that the bottom of the strip is level with the bottom of the dispenser. So don't worry about our little angle we cut, because then once the glue's dried, we'll trim that off so that the strip is angled as well. But we need it to be flush along that bottom edge. Press that into place. And you want it as far along this end of the wood as you can get it. Squeeze that together. So we're flush along the bottom edge, but we've got a bit overhanging at the front there, which we'll trim away once our glue has dried. And then bring back in your little bit of remaining strip and line that up again so it's flush along the bottom of the dispenser. And then you can snip that off at the back of the dispenser. So make a little mark like that, and then take it away and cut it off. And then we're going to glue this piece into place along the bottom edge. And I'm just pushing that little strip back in because I just knocked it out of the way. I think this time I'll apply the glue to the inside of the dispenser there. And then put the little strip into place again, making sure you've got a nice flush edge along the bottom. And don't worry about anything overhanging at the back, because again we'll trim that off. You can stand it up and make sure that those pieces are flush with the bottom like that. And then apply glue to the edges of the strip. And then glue the other side of the dispenser into place. And this time you want the backs to be level. That a gentle squeeze. Again, using my tweezers just to make that easier. There as well. And that piece can then be left to dry. So whilst that's drying, we're going to cut the insert for the sellotape roll. And for that you're going to need a 6mm circle measuring about 2mm or 5/64 of an inch thick. Now I'm cutting mine from balsa wood, and to cut it I'm using a 6mm hollow punch. Now you might also have a paper punch that is pretty robust that you could use to cut through balsa wood. Don't try it on any other wood because you'll probably blunt the blade. Or you could use a piece of card, and if you have a piece of black card, all the better, because we're going to be painting this black. But if you have got a hollow punch set, then you can actually just do it by pushing the punch down onto your wood. You can give it a little twist, but don't go round and round because then it tends to sort of fray the edges of the wood. And if it doesn't cut completely out, then you can just use the blade of your craft knife to cut round. But any sort of little 6mm or 1/4 of an inch circle you might have will be suitable. And again, of about 2mm or 5/64 of an inch thick. And balsa wood is really easy to cut, and though I don't like using it for furniture, it's ideal for little jobs like this. Once the glue has completely dried, you can turn the piece onto its side like that, and then just trim off any overhanging pieces of strip so that it's level with the angle that we created at the front and back of the dispenser. And you can just do that with your craft knife. Just trim it down so that you've got a nice flat front edge, and you might want to turn that over and do it from both sides. Go along that top edge as well, turn around that way, make sure that it's nice and straight. Like that. And then I don't think I've got anything sticking out around the back, but trim along if you have. And then take a piece of fine grained sandpaper and just sand along the edges as well. Make sure everything's nice and smooth. So this piece is now ready for paint, and tape dispensers come in all sorts of colours, so you can use any colour you like. And then we'll apply a coat of clear varnish just to give it that nice sheen. So we're not going to be painting our bottom, which I'm sure you'll be pleased to know, but to make it easier to paint the piece, stick a piece of masking tape sticky side up to your card, and then you can stick that down and then just paint all of the visible areas. And for mine, I'm using this lovely bright blue colour. And this is just a normal interior emulsion paint. I've got my smallest detailing brush here, so you can get into all the little nooks and crannies. Isn't that a lovely colour? That lovely bright blue. I've had this little pot of paint for ages, but I haven't yet used it on any projects. We now want to paint the little wheel in black, and a little bit fiddly because you need to get around all areas so you can't stick it to your tape. So if you do have a piece of black card that's about 2mm thick, then use that. We're going to be covering the outside edge with card for the sort of inside of the tape roll. But you can put a little bit of paint around, and there won't be any natural wood peeping through. And then I've got the little paint pot here, so I'm just going to stand that on there to dry. See if I can prop it against the rim of the lid. So once the paint has completely dried, add a coat of clear varnish, and I'm using a clear satin, and that will just give it that sort of plasticky sheen. When you're using clear varnish, don't keep dipping your brush back in after applying it to your paint, otherwise you'll contaminate your varnish. So you're not going to need much for this, so just take out a couple of paintbrushfuls and put it onto your tape like that. I'm just going to do 3 there, and that will probably be more than enough, and then use it from there. And if you were doing a sort of larger piece, then dispense some into a little pot. See how there, when I just wipe the brush off, that blue liquid comes off. So if you were to keep dipping that in your pot, that will end up in your clear varnish. Around that other side as well. Okay, so that can now be left to dry, and we'll start work on our roll of tape. We're now going to create our roll of tape, and for the inside of the roll, the cardboard part, you want a sort of fairly thin card, and you want something that's grey or a sort of buff colour. And you want to cut a strip that is 2 millimeters wide, and that's 5/64 of an inch. And I've cut it here a lot longer than I'm going to need it. And then apply glue, probably about halfway along. So probably covering about 1 inch of the strip. And we're then going to wrap that around our little black disc. And this bit is going to be quite fiddly, so I apologise now if I get my hands in the way, but you sort of know what I'm doing. I've got my tweezers here as well, which really helps with pressing it into place once you've wrapped it around. So work it along the card like that. Okay, so roll it around. And you want to keep it really nice and straight so you're not actually overlapping the black disc, otherwise it won't slot back into the dispenser. So go round like that. Once you've got it on, it's easier to sort of work with your fingers. You sort of roll it on like that, make sure it's nice and tight. And I'm going to snip that off with my giant scissors, about like that, and then a little bit more glue, stick that down like that. And now we need to get some tape on it, so leave that just to dry off for a moment. So come over to a sort of clear area of your cutting mat and peel off some sellotape and stick it to the cutting mat, and this is just to make a nice clean area. So give it a good press down and then pull it up again. That will take off any sort of dust or anything that's on there. And then tear off another piece and tape it to the surface so that you're following a line on your cutting mat along the top edge. So I'm going along the top of that thick white line there. Just stick it down like that, and then bring in your rule and snip it off or cut it off along another line, and we want about 4 inches or 100 millimeters. So go down like that and get rid of that piece, and then do the same at the other end so that you're leaving 4 blocks. And pull that piece off as well. Now we want to cut this into 2 millimeter strips to fit around our little spool. So you can either do that by eye, or you can come along to one end, line up the ruler at the top of that line, and then do some little 2 millimeter nicks in each end of the tape. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That will be enough, about 5 strips, and then do the same at the other end. Like that, and then you can actually cut them using your craft knife. You just need to sort of angle your head into the light so that you can see the little cuts you made. So if you are good at measuring by eye, then that's a lot easier. And then cut along. And then peel up your first strip. And we're going to use 4 strips and then an extra one for our piece that's sticking to the edge of the dispenser. So bring in your roll and try and start at the little join where the card joins. Okay, another tricky little job. Once you sort of get the end stuck, it's a bit easier. And then feed it round. And then again, try not to overlap the card, as we won't be able to get it back into the dispenser or into the holder. And wrap it round. And I've already had a practice run, and I think about 4 times around gives us a nice sized roll to sit in the dispenser. Like that. So there's the first one. And then what you can actually do is bring in your little dispenser, which is now dry, and just try the roll inside like that and make sure it fits. And each time you put a roll round, just make sure you're still in, and if not, you just want to press it down so that you're pushing all of the tape into the centre. And then you can cut your second piece and do the same thing again. So like I say, do about 4 and then we'll cut an extra one. I can't even see the tape in this light, so I'm just hoping that's where it is. And we'll do an extra one to sort of hang over the cutter. Feed it round. This is one of those really sort of tricky little jobs, but it's so worth it, I think, for the detail that it adds. I've not seen a tape dispenser in 12th scale before. I think this will look quite impressive in your miniature scene or in your doll's house. I'm making a couple. I'm going to have one for my coastal homewares shop and one for the craft room in my doll's house. And then on to the third piece. So there's my little roll of tape, and I think 4 strips of 4-inch long or 100mm long tape makes a nice sized roll, but you could go a little bit bigger if you wanted to. I just think that looks good in proportion with the actual dispenser. So cut a final little strip on your tape on your desk, but leave it there for now, and we're just going to do another couple of little things to our dispenser before we fit the tape into place. And the first thing is to create the little cutter, and for that I'm going to use aluminium foil or aluminum foil, depending on where you're watching from, and use your scissors to cut, because if you use your knife it will just ruffle it up, and you just want a teeny tiny little bit like that. I don't think I even cut into it then. I should have my glasses on. So I'm going to pick that up with the tape, with the tweezers, and just snip a little bit off. And you want it to be as wide as that little central strip at the front of the dispenser there. I'm going to snip a little bit off the end if I can pick it up. So just dot a tiny, tiny little bit of glue on there. Tiny bit. And then attach the foil. press it down with your tweezer tips. And then the other thing we're going to do is add a cardboard base, and I'm using just a sheet of black card that I've got, and it's patterned, but I'm just needing to cut a little bit of the plain in between the pattern. So measure the bottom of your dispenser, mine is 6mm by 14mm, and then cut a piece of card to size. Like that, and then apply glue to the bottom of the dispenser. A bit too much there. And then this card has got a sort of plain side and a rimpled side, and I want the rimpled side showing. And it's like a little bit of a grip mat. So press the dispenser into place. Okay, so we now want to pull up our final strip of tape. And then just sort of fit half of it around your roll. End hasn't gone on quite straight. Okay, about like that. And then pop your roll into place. And we're not going to, I'm just actually going to turn that round so that bit that's sticking out is at the bottom. We're not going to glue this into place, it will just hold itself into place. Like that. You can have it sort of overhanging a little bit at the back, and then press your tape down against the cutter like that, and then snip it off. My smaller scissors. Tape off like that. If you go over a bit too much, you can just pull it up and push the tape back a little bit. And there we are. There's our completed 1/12 scale sellotape dispenser. If you'd like to make some extra rolls of sellotape to display with your dispensers, again cut from your card a strip measuring 2mm thick or 5/64 of an inch, and glue it into a circle measuring 6mm or 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and then just do the same thing again. Cut some strips from your tape and then just stick them around the roll, and it just makes a really nice little idea for display. You can have a couple of rolls stood next to your dispenser. Like that. Okay, so that's it for today. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I've had a lot of fun making this and I'm really pleased with the results. I do hope you'll give it a try, and I look forward to seeing your photographs in my Facebook group, Little Bits and Pieces by You, where you can share photographs of the things that you've made from my YouTube channel or any of my books. And I know that some of you are really quick off the mark, and sometimes just a couple of days after sharing a tutorial you're sharing your photographs, and I really love that. So thank you so much for being a part of the group. Now that's it for today, but I'll have a Doll's House Diary episode for you before the end of the month, so I'll see you then. Take care. Bye.